And I check, the solar people tell us that we should check those every day, and so I go check them, and what I find out every day is that we have our batteries totally filled. We're absorbing much more power than we could ever possibly use, and we use much less energy. We're frequently using 100 watts or less of power in the house. The system was designed so that we could have enough power in those batteries to go for 5 days of cloudy weather and still operate the house like any house. What we found is we had the 7 rainy, cloudy days in September, and every day that I go out there, the batteries keep saying that they're full. So we really haven't used anywhere close to the amount of power that we actually are generating at this point. Next. And we have no utility bills. Next.
Next. Okay, now that we've got all our morning stuff done, we, just like everybody else, we have to get in the car and go to work. So fortunately, although we live far, 17 miles from Kerrville, we can drive our Prius fairly economically to go to work. Next. And then when we come home, this is how our home looks at the end of the day. Now, we wouldn't have this many lights on. The photographer wanted to be able to see all the windows, so when this picture was made, it has a lot of lights on, but you can see how our home looks at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, next, we like to cook outside. Our home has an indoor kitchen and an outdoor kitchen. This is our outdoor kitchen. It's on the east porch, and it has a sink and running water, and we bought this grill that works very well with wood. So we don't have to have any petroleum products on our property. We also don't have to use charcoal. So with 3 oak logs that are about this big around, I made enough coals to cook fajitas for 13 people. So it doesn't take very much if you have the right equipment. And here we are fixing our chicken breasts for dinner. Next. Now, in the evening is also when we open the high windows. So you may have been thinking, how do they open those windows? It's actually pretty simple. You just punch a button and the motor opens the windows. Next. And this is all that they open. This is a picture of our high awning windows from the outside. You can see they only open about 6 inches, and that's all it takes to let the warm air move on out of the house. Next. And now it's time to go to bed. And so the day is over, and this is our master bedroom. You'll notice it has its own little stove, which we probably will never use in the next 20 years because the house just doesn't get cold enough to require that. And it has one little window, and that window faces west. So there's some good things about that. First of all, not very much sun can get in from the west side of the house. And in the morning, the sun doesn't wake us up, so we can sleep late if we want to. So that's the end of our portion of the program. Let's let David talk about some of the technical aspects.
That was said much better than I could have, and much more believable, I would believe. Don't you agree that hearing it from somebody who's actually had the experience? I could have told you all that, but I couldn't have told it with having experienced it the way they do. And it sure has opened our eyes to be, not only, we've always been believers in building science and green building and what we do, but to the possibilities of what you can really do. Because as we went through this process with Rick and Stephanie, like the composting toilets, we were one of the, are you sure? You sure you don't want me to plumb that for a regular toilet? So we had our own naysaying, if you want to call it, our doubts as we went through the process, and they proved us right in some areas where they stretched our beliefs and capabilities. And the reason I wanted them to give this presentation was because as we've gotten to hear the story from them and through others who have been out to their house, it's just exciting to see it all come together and how comfortable it was. We went through the hottest summer we've had here in 5 or 6 or 7 years, and they lived in it comfortably and were able to stay in it the whole time. So I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the systems that we used on the house. You heard Rick mention the walls that yielded R50. We used an ICF, insulated concrete form system. This particular one was by Nudura, although there are plenty out there and a lot of good ones. This one has insulation on both the inside and the outside and the thermal mass in the middle. And there was a lot of debate and discussion that went into this for different reasons, but it has turned out to work out pretty good because the thermal mass helps hold that temperature. You heard him talk about that it can go from the low 70s in the morning to 104, and the house only creeps up a few degrees. The reason for that is because the wall system is able to absorb a lot of that energy and slowly dissipate it so that they don't have the large swings in temperature on there. Go ahead to the next slide. It's just a picture of how we had to get the concrete in. They are concrete filled. 6 inches of solid concrete in the middle, and then 2 inches of insulation on the inside and the outside, and it's foam insulation, and it does yield an R50 thermal value on there, thermal resistance value. Next slide. Another picture, this is just again from the south view as we had to reach all the way across. One of the challenges, of course, when you do sites like this is access. Our access, as you saw the front of the house, was it. That east-facing view where the driveway came up, the rest of the house is surrounded in trees. This south hill that we're looking up here is a little clearing where the solar water heater panels were installed, but was not accessible to get materials and or equipment in there to build the house. So there are some challenges that are site-specific, and that's why I encourage part of the design and the planning process is having a contractor out to look at your site and what you're doing, because that affected everything we did from before we started. That was a big issue right there, and you can see by that, that's a 100-foot boom, 32 meter, 100-foot boom on that, stretching across the house to pour that concrete. Go ahead to the next. Get just a picture pouring the concrete down in there. There's treated wood. This is actually going in under one of the windows. The wood you're seeing is what's used to attach the windows to the system. That's a treated wood window buck, and that's what we use to build up to set the windows, and that's just a picture of what it looks like for the concrete going in there. Next. Framing, we did have to, because of the complexity of the round silos that are used for venting, we made the decision, again it was a cost basis as well, to frame those traditionally. So those are stick framed. They are 12 inches thick. We put two 2x6s together, literally framed 2 walls so that we could fill it and bring the R value up and put a lot more insulation in there. We could have done those out of the insulated concrete forms, but it nearly doubled the cost of doing the system on the house. So again, part of the process as you go through and you're figuring out what you've got to do is also hitting the budget range and making sure we were able to achieve a similar performance without having to do the insulated concrete forms on the silos themselves. Next. Spray foam insulation was used in the attic and the rafter plane. I should say not attic because there is no attic. The majority of the ceilings are right on the bottom of the rafters. The couple of areas where we do have a little mechanical storage above the bathroom, the insulation is still up on the rafter plane. So all the insulation is up at the top. On this particular house we use the Demilec Selection 500 spray foam. It's an open cell foam. Again, lots of different foams. There's no right and wrong. As people are asking me about some of the different systems you use in a house, the answer is they're all good. There's no right and wrong. There's not one necessarily better than another. It's dependent upon the application of what you're trying to do. And you need to vet the process of going through and finding out which product is going to best suit your specific needs. Go ahead, next slide. Another thing that we did, I didn't have a good picture here, but it's a standing seam metal roof. We vented the roof on top of the rafters. And we did that by